Okay, so I'm gonna go over some of the changes made to Scourge today. There was not a major balance patch like a lot of people were expecting, myself included, which is a bit of a disappointment. Some people have hypothesized that maybe it's a separate patch like next week or whatever, because they do normally drop balance patches between the seasons, like somewhere in the middle, not right after a season ends, but whatever. Regardless, they did make 2 official changes to Scourge, and there was also 3 major changes to Scourge that were not listed in the patch notes. So I'll start with the things they did list in the patch note. First off, shade stacking is no longer a thing. So if I put a shade down and then stand in it, you only get 1 stack of Torment, you don't get 2 stacks. So no more shade stacking. The second thing is your F5 now, the wording they used was properly processes manifest sand shade, which basically what that translates to is your F5 no longer pulses Doomfire. So, no pulsing burning anymore, which actually really hits F5's damage capabilities. That was the 2 listed changes. Now, there was 3 other changes made. The first one is that Manifest Sand Shade now only lasts 10 seconds, which is down from 20 seconds, which is what it used to last. It is important to note this change apparently only occurred in PvP, so you still have 20-second shades in PvE. But that is pretty big. It means, first off, it means you basically are required to run Sand Savant at all times in PvP. 3 Shade Scourge is literally unplayable with 10-second shades. And it also just means you have to be really mindful of if your shade's up, if you're planning on upkeeping, you know, your 15% damage reduction that you get from your miners and those bonuses, so that's kind of a bit of a nerf. It's annoying, and it doesn't really change much, but it's very annoying to play now. The other change is Nefarious Favor now has the same base cooldown as Sand Cascade. So it's not a huge change, like it's only, I forgot exactly what it was before, but it only went up by like a couple seconds, so it's not a huge change, but it is somewhat noticeable. And then the third change is actually a buff, but it's an indirect buff. Sand Flare now properly counts as a healing skill. Before, Sand Flare, which is your number 6 healing skill, did not count as a healing skill, which for runes and such. So if you had any kind of a rune that had on-heal skill usage effect, it didn't work. It also didn't work with traits that went off your heal skill. For example, your Adept trait in Spite, Spiteful Renewal, did not work with Sand Flare. That it now works with those, which is good, because that was kind of dumb that it didn't work before. And those are the 3 big changes. And they're actually, they don't sound like a lot, but they're actually pretty big. I spent some time in the Brawling Pit just fighting random people, and it's actually a lot harder to win 1v1s as a Scourge now. Hollowsmith is actually a major threat to a Scourge now, even though they're kind of low on cleansing, because it's really hard to burst them down before they kill you, because again, you have really weak tower defenses on a Scourge. Warriors, you basically can't kill them ever now. Like, Core Warrior's actually hard to fight as Scourge now. And Spellbreaker, you just don't even try fighting a Spellbreaker as a Scourge. Reaper does extremely well against Scourge now. Like, before you could 1v1 a Scourge with a Reaper, but it was really tricky and you had to play your cards right to do it. But now you can basically just roll your face on the keyboard as a Reaper and you'll still beat a Scourge. Like, it's so easy now. Because the damage has just dropped off so much, just from the lack of stacking and the removal of pulsing Doomfire. And the cooldown changes. One other change, and this isn't directly related to Scourge, is we now have Celestial Amulet in PvP. It is a nerf version. It's 460 of each stat rather than 560 of each stat, which is what the old version of Celestial was. I'm going to play with it. I'm not expecting much because you need a ton of might stacking to make this work. And necromancers generally aren't very good at might stacking. A lot of people think Reaper's good at it. It really isn't, because of how conditional Spite's Might generation is. So I don't really think you'll have any good Celestial Reaper builds. I know some people are excited for it because a lot of Reapers run Celestial in World v World. But in World v World you can kind of get away with it because Deathly Chill is 3 bleeding stacks. So you can really get good value from your condition damage on Reaper in World v World while still running Spite and stuff. Whereas in SPVP you just can't get the value out of a lot of the stats because you can't really get value out of healing power and you can't really get value out of condition damage. That's a Necro. It may be interesting to maybe try some like hybrid support build. It's like blood magic with Celestial. Granted, you could already do that with the Sage Amulet. However, Celestial also gives you enough defensive stat that you may not die instantly as a support Scourge, which, you know, is kind of important. But we'll see. It's very early right now, and we'll have to see what happens to the meta. But right now, until there's a balance patch, like, Spellbreaker is basically the king of the meta now. Like, nothing can touch Spellbreaker anymore. Hype. But that's basically it. We'll have to see for future balance patches what happens.